Good morning, world.
Good morning, Michigan. A very pleasant Thursday to you, Michael Patrick Shields. It wasn't a very pleasant day yesterday for President Barack Obama, though he tried to show us a tough face. He went in the East Room of the White House, Gary Austin, and he told everybody, well, sort of told them, that he's humbled by the Republican-dominated results of the midterm elections. Here's what he said.
After what I'm sure was a long night for a lot of you, and needless to say, it was for me, I can tell you that, some election nights are more fun than others.
And he says, one party is not going to dictate the direction of the nation.
No person, no party has a monopoly on wisdom. And that's why I'm eager to hear good ideas wherever they come from, whoever proposes them.
Meanwhile, the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, said she has, quote, no regrets, end quote, after Republicans made big gains in the midterm elections. That's national politics. Let's bring it closer to home if we can, Gary Austin, and tell you that apparently Rick Snyder had got organized pretty quickly. I mean, he did know he was going to win. That was very likely. And so at 11 o'clock on Tuesday night, when the state police showed up to offer him, their services as bodyguards, that's what protocol dictates. They assume their duties, and he got started. He's under no obligation to keep the current members of the detail, but probably will keep them. There's been no hint that he's going to change anything. He also began, Rick Snyder did, to surround himself with the people who will help him make the transition. The meeting yesterday morning with Governor Granholm before she got on the airplane to South Korea. And now, former people from the Engler administration are surrounding Rick Snyder. One of them is Doug Rothwell, the head of business leaders for Michigan. He's going to be the chair, apparently, of the transition committee. His wife, too, Sharon Rothwell, who was an Engler chief of staff, and Meyer president Mark Murray, who served as the budget director and the state treasurer, will be helping Rick Snyder with the transition. We'll speak to each of them in the coming days. Now, there is also plenty to do for the legislature as they get ready to finish the lame duck session and move into the new year. State Senator Gretchen Whitmer, the Democrat from East Lansing, a regular on this program, is expected to be named leader of the Senate Democratic Caucus. She will be the Democratic Senate Minority Leader. They're going to have a special election. It looks like she's locked up all the support she needs, and we'll stay tuned for that news today and speak with her, of course, if and when it happens. There are other leadership positions being squared up now, too. It looks like Jace Bolger, the Republican from Marshall, will be the new Speaker of the House. There's been no hint of anybody challenging Bolger for that top spot. Gary, what's up in your world?
Well, I'll tell you what, MPS, your mention of Rick Snyder moving quickly here.
Yeah.
And surrounding himself with people who know the business of politics very well. Mm-hmm. I mean, this trio, Doug Rothwell and Sharon Rothwell and Mark Murray, I mean, for someone who admittedly, he even says himself, he's got a very scant knowledge when it comes to insider politics in Lansing. If he wants a real quick read, a quick learn, he couldn't have found three better people to really get this thing moving for him and really learn fast. And a lot of important things, MPS, he's got to nail down here from the get-go, because once this team is in place, then it's get to work on the budget, and that's the big job.
Well, it's funny. The outsider suddenly surrounded himself with insiders, didn't he?
Well, he has to. He has to. He's bringing in his own outsider perspective, but he can't go it alone. He knows that. Everybody knows that. So
Okay.
You knew he was going to have a close link to those who've had a real seasoned experience in state government, and certainly this trio has. And boy, again, I mean, you can surround yourself with all the geniuses in the world, and those of us on the outside are very anxious to see how they're going to deal with this state budget thing. I mean, a problem, MPS, where we got a situation. I mean, you can't raise taxes. I mean, they know that. You can't. I mean, they've admitted they're not going to do that. So where do you get the money to balance this budget that is so off the chart right now? It's going to be a real. I mean, Rick Snyder's business sense is going to be put to the test if he wants to transfer that and have it work on a state government level. We're all anxious to see how he does it.
Speaking of political insiders, Mark Brewer, the Democratic Party chair, some people might think it's conventional wisdom that when you suffer that big of a loss to the opposing party, that maybe it's time to go. But Mark Brewer is saying that he plans to stay on. He plans to bid for the job again. He said that Snyder has now taken full responsibility for Michigan's economy, so he can't walk away from Michigan's problems. And so it sounds like Mark Brewer is ready to be the opponent from day one.
Let me tell you, MPS, about Mark Brewer. I've been doing this a long time, and when it comes to those who were really good at doing their job, I mean, it's hard to argue. Mark Brewer, he is one of the best at what he does. You know, he always comes well prepared. And you always know where he's coming from. He's aggressive, but at the same time, you'll have an issue, and I find myself doing this. I'm sure you'll agree. You'll have an issue. You're a little hazy on, well, I don't quite get it. And then Mark Brewer comes and he explains it, and whether or not Republican, Democrat, whatever, you always come away thinking, you know, that guy really knows what he's talking about. He's he's always so well prepared.
Did you know he's the longest-serving state party chair in the country?
Well, you know, he got the job in 1936 when FDR was president, and he's had it ever since.
No,
you
it was 1995.
I know, but it seems like Mark Brewer's been around. I mean, the guy's everywhere.
The residents in Crawford voted overwhelmingly for a dead man on Tuesday, according to the county clerk there. The late Ken Reel received 2,500 votes for road commissioner, despite passing away on October 18th. State law doesn't allow dead people to take office, so the votes weren't officially counted. But nevertheless, it was very interesting.
That happens. It seems like every election somewhere that sort of thing happens. Right?
You've been lauding Secretary of State Terry Lynn Land for her predictions on voter turnout.
Yeah.
Looks like it was 45%. That's where it came down.
Yeah, she was saying 52, but you know, I think if you took all of Terry Lynn Land's predictions for as long as she's been predicting elections and you mix them all up in a pot, I mean, take the average, I would say she's pretty close to dead on.
Yeah, and I guess that's quite on par with the previous gubernatorial elections. In 2002 and 1998, it was 43.5%. It was 45.5% in 1994. When you don't have a president running, I guess that's sort of the best you can hope for.
Yeah, it's true. But then again, all the hoopla, all the chatter, you know, and all of the emphasis on the importance of this election, plus the state of the state's affairs. I mean, there were a lot of reasons for people to vote for a wide number. I mean, it wasn't, I mean, there's so many different, a wide array of candidates were up, but, you know, it's the way it goes. And the weather was like perfect, almost statewide, and that usually generates more of a turnout. I figured we'd at least hit 50, but really, I mean, well, within 45? Is that what they're saying? 45?
Yep. Speaking of the weather, NASA is going to need some luck if they want to launch the Space Shuttle Discovery today. There's only a 20% chance of good weather at launch time. It's supposed to be this afternoon, and there have been some technical glitches. But the mission is a milestone because it'll be the final flight of Discovery before that becomes the very first space shuttle to be retired. I think there are only 2 launches left, and the commander, Steve Lindsay, and his 5-member crew will be up there for 11 days to the International Space Station when they go. And what will happen is once Discovery lands, there'll be ground teams at Kennedy Space Center, and they will carefully safe the vehicle and prepare it for its final destination at a museum or a science center. If it happens today, it'll be at 3:29 p.m. They haven't figured out exactly where Discovery will go after this mission, but Commander Steve Lindsay says he's going to drive this one very carefully.
Yeah,
Discovery being, gosh, 25 years old, and you still walk in and it's like a new car. And so we're going to deliver it back, hopefully in the best condition possible, and take the best care that we can with it.
And Discovery astronaut Tim Kopra says being on the final flight for this spaceship is both an honor and a responsibility.
We all feel very privileged to be part of this mission, and we also feel like we have a lot of responsibility to do the best that we can to put Space Station in the best possible condition before we leave.
And
very historic,
and you know I'm a big fan of the space shuttle, and I'm sorry to see them go, and there are only a couple of flights left. So if it doesn't happen today, we'll have coverage tomorrow. We're kind of hoping some of these launches will be during our broadcast time, and if so, we'll cover them live.
Well, MPS, we're big fans, too, of Sparky Anderson, and a real sad note here. I know you're aware of the situation with Sparky. His health is well, it's according to his family, it's deteriorating of late.
Yeah, he's been given hospice care apparently, which is not a good sign. And we're going to talk with Larry Sorensen a little bit later. He worked with Sparky, and of course I worked with Sparky quite a bit too. In fact, I've got a new book coming out in a couple of weeks called Invite Yourself to the Party. And Sparky Anderson is one of the endorsements on the back of the book. He was
very
nice
good.
enough to do that for me after I had to wake him up so many days of his life when I was working for J.P. McCarthy because we had an arrangement where we would call him the morning after games and always at 7:35. And so, you imagine what he sounded like at 7:35 in the morning. Yeah. But he was always friendly, even though he sounded gruff. And sometimes on the West Coast, it was particularly difficult because that was 4:30 in the morning when we would call Mr. Manager.
Yeah,
Sparky
he's
Anderson.
a great guy. I got to know Sparky, too. I covered the Kansas City Royals for 2 seasons, 83 and 84. And in 84, the Tigers played the Royals in the ALCS. And he was always accessible.
Right.
Of course, to the Detroit media, he was great. But I was a Kansas City reporter then. And for 2 radio stations, he was just as nice and cordial to me as he was to the local media that was following him day in and day out. Sparky Anderson, just a great guy.
The winningest manager in Tiger history, the first manager to win World Series in both the American and National Leagues. We'll have more. He's Gary Austin. I'm Michael Patrick Shields, back in a flash. Yeah, remember that guy? He'd say, "This is Mrs. H. She's gorgeous. What a terrific lady."
I take care of them, which ain't easy, because their hobby is murder.
Of course, he was talking about Stephanie Powers and Robert Wagner in the show Heart to Heart. And Stephanie Powers, the star of that program, is with us with her new book, One from the Heart. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
We on this program, we never let the birthday of a beautiful woman pass without taking note. Yesterday, you were our beautiful woman. It was your birthday. Happy belated birthday.
Well, thank you very much. It was a double pleasure because when Simon & Schuster announced a few months ago that the date of the release of our book, I say our book because I did it with Simon & Schuster's wonderful editor, Mitchell Ivers, was going to be November 2nd. I said, well, that's my birthday. What a great coincidence. And that's what the book is about. Funnily enough, it has a great deal to do with how extraordinary a life, my life has been. I would say maybe it was preordained, but it certainly was. There was a great deal of coincidence in the way in which people's lives crisscrossed in my youth and throughout my life.
I think the big surprise, and by the way, when you walk past this book in the bookstore, you look at it at one of the online book buying sites, Stephanie Powers, One from the Heart. The picture on the front is one of pure beauty and pure joy, and I don't mean to embarrass you by that, but anybody who can walk past this book without stopping and saying, wow, what an appealing-looking, gorgeous woman that is, would they have to be dead?
Oh, that's very nice. Thank you very much.
And I think when you open it up and you start to realize, sure, I know Stephanie Powers. She was Robert Wagner's wife on Heart to Heart. And then you start to get into the book a little bit and you see the amazing experiences that you had. First and foremost, meeting Pope John Paul II and speaking Polish to him. That had to be a very, very exciting moment. What's it like to meet the Pope?
Well, when he walked into the room, it wasn't just a meeting. I actually was... because of some circumstances, I wound up with a group of Polish pilgrims, and we went to Castello Gandolfo, which is the Pope's residence during the summer, and had Mass from his hand. When we were ushered into a kind of loggia overlooking a beautiful garden, and there was a simple table with a cross and a white tablecloth, and the pilgrims from Poland began singing, and I all of a sudden realized that the Mass was going to be in Polish. And I hadn't said Mass in Polish for many, 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 many years. But somehow from the medulla oblongata or something, out it sprung. And when he entered, there was like a radiance of holiness around him. Whether you believe in Catholicism or not, when you're in the presence of a holy man, it is an indelible experience.
I know that the Pope was infallible and all that, but I got to believe in the back of his mind he was saying, wow, this is a gorgeous woman in front of me here, don't you think?
Well, he was an actor, you know. He had been an actor, and he actually... Heart to Heart was very popular in Italy. It was called Cuori Batti Cuori, and I had it on authority that the Pope used to watch it.
Oh, well, that's fantastic. See, that's awfully flattering there. And,
But he
we
knew
love...
that I was Polish, so...
Yeah, well, dziękuję for sharing that story with us.
Well,
We sure-
Yamazatsu.
we love Gerald Ford stories here in Michigan because he was our president in Grand Rapids there, and you had lunch with President Ford. Did you? He had this reputation as maybe not being the most suave, debonair fellow. What was he like?
Well, he didn't trip on anything.
Good.
But he's very, very, very nice man, and very affable and available. And it was the circumstances were had to do with their visit to 20th Century Fox Studios, and he and Henry Kissinger. And of course, I knew Mr. Kissinger for a long time after that. And it was just a great privilege to have that opportunity.
Any man would feel clumsy around you, I would think. They would start to shake and their
But
palms...
he had an unfortunate little case of dropsy every once in a while, didn't he?
And Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth, this is astonishing, these people that you've met, and Ronald Reagan and Margaret
Well, I played
Thatcher.
polo with Prince Charles a number of times, and I remember the last time we played together, we were riding out onto the field, and he said, "I don't think I'm going to be doing this much longer."
Oh, really?
I said, well, that's not setting a good example for us seniors, He quit, but I'm still playing.
Oh, good for you. We can read all about it and see the pictures as well, including that beautiful cover shot of Stephanie Powers, One from the Heart. I sure appreciate the time that we've had together this morning. I wish you all the best. And just think, when you can say, well, I've played polo with Prince Charles lots of times, that's pretty unique.
Well, it's been a ball.
It's been a ball. We love you, madam. Thank you very much, and we'll be reading the book.
Thank you so much for having me.
Stephanie Powers at 28 minutes after the hour. One from the Heart is the name of her book. There were some guys who were heartbroken yesterday. They went to Windsor Casino in Detroit there in Canada, and when they were coming back, they were big winners. They had 19,000, almost 20 really, $20,000 in their pocket. They were stopped at the border, and they tried to dodge a rule requiring that if you declare more than, you're carrying more than $10,000 in cash, you have to declare it. And they started to count the cash. They got inspected, and they told the officers that they had taken $4,000 to the casino and were returning with their winnings. And all of a sudden, they admitted that they won $40,000 at the casino. They put $20,000 in the deposit at the casino and split the balance. And the reason they did that is they wanted to avoid the $10,000 mark. But the money that they had was almost $20,000. It's not illegal to take money in and out of the country, but you have to give an accurate declaration of the money you're carrying. So you know what the penalty is for trying to dodge the border guard? You forfeit the money, or the Cuban cigars, or whatever it is. So they got all the money from the guys. The Dow was up 26 yesterday on the day after the election. The S&P gained 4. The Nasdaq was up 7. There was an announcement by the Fed yesterday that it will print billions of dollars to rescue the U.S. economy, and that's drawn a swift response from overseas policymakers. South Korea's Ministry of Finance says it will aggressively consider controls on capital money flows. And Governor Granholm, as you know by now, having left yesterday around noon, certainly would be in South Korea at this stage. General Motors putting the finishing touches on their initial public offering. That may result, though, in a loss of as much as $4.9 billion to the Treasury on its shares as General Motors tries to get out from under the government thumb. And when we say the government, I'm talking about you and me, ladies and gentlemen, all the rest of us. GM's going to sell 365 million common shares, and that's going to raise about $10 billion, and there'll be some preferred shares put on the market too. We're looking at an estimate of $26 to $29 a share in case you're interested in investing in General Motors. Tough times for MGM. The age-old Hollywood studio has filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, if you can believe that. Now, MGM around here is best known for the James Bond franchise. And if you go back in history, they did The Wizard of Oz and Ben-Hur and a lot of those big productions. But the thing is, they were supposed to make a 23rd James Bond movie. That's been suspended indefinitely. And all the other film projects are suspended too. So we're going to be waiting a long time to get our next James Bond movie. And maybe by the time the next James Bond movie comes out, the guy, Daniel Craig, will be too old to play him. We'll have to get another good one. We never let the birthday of a beautiful woman pass without taking note. Hot Lips from MASH. Loretta Swit is 73 today, and First Lady Laura Bush is 64. Marky Post is 60. Happy birthday, darlings, to all of you. At 31 minutes after the hour, Tony Cuthbert says, how about a look at sports? And I couldn't agree more. Andrew Ruthkowski from Muskegon has been spending a lot of time at the Boyne Golf Academy with Brian O'Neill, and it's paying off. He was 11th out of 77 golfers yesterday in the first stage of the PGA Tour qualifying school down in North Carolina, so he gets to move on, and maybe Andrew Ruthkowski will be playing in the PGA Tour. Michigan football coach Rich Rodriguez apparently has been absolved of the NCAA's allegation he failed to promote an atmosphere of compliance, but the program has drawn another year of probation. That's what the insiders are saying anonymously. It's good news for the University of Michigan, and that'll be publicly revealed this afternoon. We'll talk to Andrea Fisher-Newman, the top vote getter yesterday on the University of Michigan Board of Regents, and get her reaction coming up shortly. Ken Kal, the radio broadcaster for the Red Wings, was way out in Calgary, Alberta yesterday because the Red Wings started their 3-game road trip against the Flames. What happened, Ken?
Thanks, Michael Patrick. Justin Abdelkader scored his first goal of the season and it proved to be the game winner as the Red Wings defeated the Flames 2-1 last night in Calgary. It was the second straight win for Detroit. 8 minor penalties were called in the first period. Mark Giordano's power play goal at 15:58 of the first period put the Flames on the board. Detroit roared back, though, in the second to take the lead on Mike Modano's second goal of the season and Abdelkader's first of the campaign. Calgary had just 4 shots on goal in the final period. Jimmy Howard shut the door for his 5th win of the season. Detroit outshot the Flames 33-17 in the contest. The Red Wings now travel to Edmonton for a meeting with the Oilers on Friday night. Final again in Calgary, the Red Wings 2 and the Flames 1. That's the story from the Saddle Dome. Now back to you, Michael Patrick, in the studio.
Thanks, Ken. The Pistons are 0-5 on the season. They lost to the Hawks last night in Atlanta, 94-85. And the former Tiger manager, Sparky Anderson, has been placed in hospice in California. He's got complications from dementia, the winningest Tiger manager of all time. Got the World Series in 1984, and at that time was the first manager ever to win the World Series in both the American and the National League because he'd done it with the Cincinnati Reds a number of times. He's 76 years old and a member of the Baseball Hall of Fame. We'll talk with Larry Sorensen coming up about his experiences with Mr. Manager, as I called him, Sparky Anderson. Randy Moss has found a new NFL team. The Tennessee Titans have taken him off of waivers from the Minnesota Vikings, and everybody says, good luck with that guy. Nobody really seems to learn their lesson, but maybe this will be the charm for him. 35 minutes after the hour, we come back. We'll talk with Tom Zernick from Citizens International. He's Citizens Bank. He's an international banking guru, we're going to call him, and find out what's going on with exporting in Michigan. Chris Shepler will be here, too, from the Mackinac Island Ferry Service in a new maneuver in the battle for the Straits of Mackinac, as Shepler's service is attempting to be squeezed out by Arnold and Starr, and so he's got a new maneuver. This is like a great naval battle up there as the city council tries to decide what to do with the ferry service on Mackinac Island. We're back in a flash. It's Michael Patrick Shields, and it's Thursday. Speaking of business, Port Lansing is going to host its first Global Logistics Conference. That's on November 10th at the Kellogg Hotel and Conference Center in East Lansing. They're going to inform Michigan businesses how to utilize Port Lansing and the international logistics activities and provide some insight and some other challenges and opportunities related to the global markets. Tom Zernick back with us from Citizens Bank, so-called international banking guru. That's what my producer called you, Tom. You like being called a guru?
You know, I'm really more of an SBA guru, Michael, but we are starting to do more and more international financing as companies pursue revenue streams outside of the United States. And in fact, I heard an interesting statistic last week that said that companies that export today grow 22% faster than non-exporters. So we're really excited to team up with the Chamber of Commerce and the Port Authority to open up our businesses' eyes to the resources that are available to help them establish revenue bases outside of the United States. And how do you finance that?
Yeah, I emceed an event the other day, on Election Day, in fact, for the Lansing Chamber of Commerce, and Neogen was talking about the unbelievable growth that they have, exponential growth because of their overseas efforts, and those efforts pay off here locally with jobs and investment and that sort of thing. And it's funny because, during the election campaign, we heard so much about exporting jobs to China that exporting almost took on the specter of being a pejorative, but it's really not, is it?
No, absolutely not. In fact, during President Obama's State of the Union address earlier in the year, he mentioned that he wants to double exports out of the United States over the next 5 years. So part of the jobs bill that President Obama signed on September 27th provided some sweeping changes to SBA lending, Small Business Administration lending, to help businesses not only export but gain access to capital. So, the SBA today, we can do SBA loans now. Instead of a $2 million cap, we can now do loans up to $5 million. And in fact, SBA loans are now on sale. The fees are temporarily waived on SBA loans through December 31st of this year. So there's some really exciting things going on with SBA. And again, working capital lines of credit, things that businesses are struggling getting access to today. That program has been expanded from $350,000 to $1 million. So right now, the SBA has really opened up its doors to help businesses gain access to that much-needed capital so that they can grow.
But is anybody knocking? That's the question. I mean, aren't people a little bit timid, a little bit scared about investing and reinvesting at the moment because of the political uncertainty?
Well, absolutely. I think folks are waiting to see what health bill does to their company. But I can tell you that there are a lot of loans being made. In fact, SBA's year just had the year end of September 30th. And the number of loans that were done in the state of Michigan were up 34%. It went from about 1,100 loans in 2009 to about 1,500 loans this year. And the dollars were up over 50%. So there is a lot more credit being approved and funded here in the state of Michigan. So we're excited to be part of that. And again, we look forward to a fantastic day next week to help our businesses here throughout the state make friends overseas and enjoy that revenue growth.
Well, we love positive news, and I'm happy to hear that. There are a lot of small business people saying, it's tough to get capital, but when you say that Citizens Bank has it available, I'm sure they'll be knocking on that proverbial door that you talked about, Tom Zernick, and we appreciate starting the morning with good news like that. He is with Citizens Bank, an SBA guru, talking about the Port Lansing Conference next week. Sparky Anderson, the world-famous manager from the Tigers, the winningest manager in Tiger history, the guy who won the World Series in both the National and the American Leagues, 76 years old, has been placed into hospice in California, complications from dementia. Larry Sorensen worked very frequently with Sparky Anderson when he was a Tiger broadcaster and worked for ESPN and pitched for 7 major league teams. Good morning, Larry.
Mike Patrick, how are you doing this morning?
Yeah, everybody's sad to hear this news. They picture Sparky to be such a vibrant, funny, charismatic guy, the little guy that everybody kind of loved. He was a tough guy, too, though, wasn't he?
He was a tough guy, but he had a huge heart, and he always did what you needed him to do. You could walk into his office and say, Sparky, I need 3 minutes, and he would give you 3:01 or 2:59, whatever you needed. And just a great, great guy to be around. So sad. Just went through this with my own mother, so it's kind of heart-wrenching at this point in time.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. And Sparky Anderson was media savvy too. I mean, when you had to interview him, he knew exactly what you were looking for, right?
Well, like I said, 2:59, 3:01. He'd say, Lawrence, my boy, what do you need? and then he would go. And that was it.
And he really was almost cartoonish to some degree with the pipe and the Casey Stengleese that he kind of spoke from time to time. He had his quirks.
Dumb like a fox.
Yeah.
Yeah. He knew exactly what he was doing. He knew exactly what he was doing at all points in time. He ran a clubhouse better than anybody I've ever seen. He said, the only thing that I have to do is keep the 25 guys in that clubhouse happy. And if they're happy, will win.
That's easier said than done, I'm guessing. There's Larry Sorensen, who pitched for 7 major league teams, saw an awful lot of clubhouses, too, as a broadcaster. And you can find him in Grand Rapids, Diamond Sports Training Academy, where he teaches young people to become big stars like him. And his son pitches in the minor league system for the Tigers, too, working his way up there. It's 14 before the hour. More on Sparky Anderson and the rest of your Thursday when we continue. We like hearing something good, and I know you do too. Nobody wants to hear complaining and whining. Everybody wants to hear some good positive news that we can get going with this morning. So on this program, we try to tell you something good from time to time. There is a battle going on in the Straits of Mackinac over the ferry service. You know that by now because we've provided extensive coverage of the story. The Star Line and the Arnold Line seem to be attempting to merge and squeeze out Sheplers with the possible help of the Mackinac Island City Council and so forth. But anyway, they're working on it all, and maybe they'll come up with some sort of reasonable, that's what the insiders tell me. They're going to come up with some sort of a reasonable compromise, and let's hope so. But on the other end of our line right now, Chris Shepler, one-time America's Cup sailor, the vice president of Shepler's Mackinac Island Ferry Service, which has been going for more than 60 years, taking people from St. Ignace and Mackinac City, and they are sort of amending their business and evolving and making a significant change. Good morning. How are you, sailor?
I'm great, Michael. How are you this morning?
Good. I should call you captain. That's not very...
Either or is fine.
How often do you get behind the wheel of one of those ferries?
Every day.
You do that yourself, huh?
Yes, sir. We give my brother's behind the wheel pretty much every day. He's on a schedule, and then I do lunch breaks for our captains to get them off the boat for an hour or so. So I'm on every day for a couple hours.
Is that fun? Because every time I ride the ferry, it's unique for me to look out the window and all that. And I always wonder, what's it like for the guy piloting the ferry? Because basically you're going back and forth the same route, that sort of thing. Does it get monotonous, or is it fun?
Well, it does get monotonous sometimes, but you also get those days that are, a little out of the ordinary with some weather or fog, or in the evening you're running, and, that breaks it up a little bit. But it's such, it's so beautiful that it doesn't get monotonous at all.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so. I mean, you must have the sea and the lakes in your blood. I mean, that you couldn't be in Denver or something like that. You'd have to be near the water, wouldn't you?
I think so. I don't think I could live out west.
Yeah. Now, you've decided to add service, as I understand it now. Can you explain what you'll be doing?
Well, unfortunately, we were shut down last night at the city council meeting. We are not able to run that service anymore. And to explain that service, we have always thought that the city wanted us to run ice to ice and provide more services to the community of Mackinac Island.
Yeah.
So we spent a couple of weeks asking the island, meaning the community members of the island, what they wanted to see, and we're gathering all this information and. And we put together an initiative that we're running 4 trips, or we were running, I should say, 4 trips a day with our fast ferry through December 4th.
Mm-hmm.
And last night we received a letter from Mr. Kavanaugh, who's the lawyer for the city, that we are to shut down, and we are operating illegally because of our franchise. We checked a box that said that we were going to be finished on October 31st, and back in April, not knowing that all of this stuff was going to come down, and for us to we were going to stop on October 31st. So all of this went through this summer and into the fall. We realized that there is a need for some sort of service to the island at this time with a fast ferry because of our research. So we decided to throw in this initiative, and Mr. Kavanaugh told us that we have to stop. So all of that effort has gone to naught. The citizens of the island are they were very happy with what we were doing, and now we I guess we have to reapply to be able to take people to Mackinac Island.
I thought that was part of the attractiveness of the Arnold and Star package, is that they were going to run so-called year-round service. And so if you up the ante, and you have the fastest fleet, so if you wanted to extend the service, I thought that would please the city.
I don't know what is going to please the city at this point, Michael. I'm so frustrated, and last night completely frustrated at the city council meeting that here we are trying to do something. We did our research that the city of Mackinac Island has not done. We did, found out what they want. We put it in service, and then they tell us we can't do it. So I don't know what I don't know what we can do at this point.
It seems like they're, you're trying to come their way with some compromise, and they want to cut you right off at the knees. Is that a fair way to say it?
Yeah, it really is, Michael. I'm trying to be politically correct, but I don't know. I mean, I don't. You're absolutely correct. We make a move to the left, they say I can't. We make the move to the right, they can't. So it's all these little hoops and jumps and things that we have to go through that we've never had to go through before, and it just appears that whatever we do, we're wrong.
Is there any timeline yet on when they're going to make their decision about the future of the ferry systems?
It appears now that it's March 31st.
March 31st? How are you supposed to plan for the new season if they don't decide till the end of March?
Yeah, that's a question that we're asking ourselves as well.
And asking the courts, too, I presume, right?
That is correct, sir.
All right. We'll keep in touch with Chris Shepler, the Shepler Mackinac Island Ferries. It's a very, very, very strange story in the Straits of Mackinac, and we will continue to provide full coverage of that for you. 3 minutes before the hour, Michael Patrick Shields, more of your Thursday right after the news.
Good morning, world.
Good morning, Michigan. A very pleasant Thursday to you. And we're still sort of winding down from the election, but winding up for the new administration and the new legislature. And Gary Austin is our anchorman, Congressman Pete Hoekstra, who is now in sort of a lame duck status there on the Intelligence Committee, and the Republican from West Michigan. Good morning to you. Nice to hear your voice again, sir.
Hey, thank you. Good morning.
Well, what was your reaction to seeing that large margin by which Rick Snyder won the election?
I mean, I think it was Tuesday night was an exciting night for Republicans. I mean, Rick, having a significant win here in the state of Michigan, and then all of the other races. We sweeping all the statewide offices, taking back the House of Representatives here in the state, taking the expanding the margin in the Senate, and then seeing what happened in Washington. And you say, wow, what a great night. And then it's like, you wake up on Wednesday morning, it's very much like what happened in 1994. It's like, okay, now we need to govern, we need to deliver. And I think that Republicans aren't going to have as much time in 2011, 2012 to prove that they're back as what we had in 1995. In 1995, we hadn't been in the majority for 40 years. People cut us some slack. I think in 2011, it's kind of like, hey, you guys were in control 4 years ago. You blew it. We're giving you a second chance, but you better deliver this time, and you better deliver quick.
I know this is kind of a silly question, but do you, in some small way, wish that you decided to run for the House again, and do you wish that you were going to be a part of this so-called Republican revolution?
I think the great thing is I spent all day Monday with Bill Heisinger going around the 2nd Congressional District. I watched all the results. I was at Wood TV Tuesday night doing a little bit of analytical work with them. And, the great thing, Michael, is I never had any pangs of saying, wow, I wish I was here. I wish I was going to be there for this new majority. I've been there. I've done that. I've had the opportunity to serve in Congress, to serve on the Intel Committee. It has been an awesome experience, but 18 years is a wonderful opportunity. My wife and I were fully prepared for this transition and to move on.
And then you look across the state and you see John Dingell, who had a little bit of a scare there, now getting close to 60 years in the House of Representatives. That would be like you being there 3 times as long as you were. Can you even fathom that?
No, I think John Dingell, didn't he get elected the first time 1954 or something like that?
Yeah, yeah.
1954, 1955. So he was almost sworn in for the first time around the day that I was born. No, I can't fathom that.
That's something else.
Okay, I mean it's and I love John. I think clearly we don't agree on the political issues, but John's a great guy. But I can't imagine staying in Washington that long. There's a lot of people in the 2nd Congressional District. There's a lot of people in the 15th Congressional District that can do this job. I don't think our founding fathers ever envisioned anybody staying in office as long as John Dingell has stayed in office.
Yeah, longer than most popes, I think, if you look back in history, too.
I'm sure that's true, yes.
Do you think that Congressman Mike Rogers, who won resoundingly in the Brighton and Lansing area, has a chance to be the chairman of the Intelligence Committee?
I think so. Mike's really demonstrated great leadership on the Intel Committee. He knows this stuff. He's a former FBI agent. He'd be a great leader on the Intel Committee. And Michigan's going to do very, very well in this upcoming Congress. Dave Camp is going to be the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee. Most likely, Fred Upton is going to be the chairman of the Commerce Committee.
Wow.
Candace Miller is going to continue her leadership on Homeland Security and on transportation issues. Thad McCotter's part of the elected leadership. And I think, whether Mike's going to be working on Commerce or chairing the Intel Committee, I think it's going to be great. The other thing that I'd watch for, Michael, is Michigan's going to have a Republican on the Appropriations Committee. It's going to be a very, very tough assignment. It's going to be very interesting to see who steps up and takes that appointment. There's a seat there waiting for a Republican from Michigan, and it'll be interesting to see who takes that seat.
Wow, we are suddenly really our status has been elevated in Washington beyond probably what any of us could have imagined.
I think it really is. I think it's really going to be it's going to be exciting. We're going to have Michigan people in the lead on a few of our the most significant committees in Washington, and they've been there for Dave Camp, I think, has got 20 years in on Capitol Hill. Fred Upton's got 24, 26 years on Capitol Hill.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be moving into these chairmanships. They're well prepared. They've done the work. They've done the homework. Now they're going to get the opportunity to lead, and I'm looking forward to seeing exactly what those two guys are going to be able to do.
Gary Austin, any questions for Congressman Hoekstra? I hear you there. I'm sure you do.
Oh, I'm just curious, Congressman, after being all but locked out of discussions involving federal health care reform and stimulus and what have you, do you find it unusual President Obama is now saying he wants to work with Republicans now that the tide has changed?
Oh, no, I don't find it unusual at all. I mean, he has no choice. Like I said, we went through this in 1994. We were locked out in 1993, 1994. Bill Clinton had big majorities in both the House and the Senate. The day after the election in 94, Bill Clinton recognized that there was a new reality. There was a new speaker in town, Newt Gingrich, and some of the most productive years from a legislative standpoint with the most lasting impact happened in 95, 96 with Bill Clinton and with Newt Gingrich. You go back to that area. We cut taxes. We reformed welfare. Dave Camp took the Republican lead on reforming welfare back in 95. Dave Camp is going to have the opportunity to perform like that again. We built a stronger economy. We balanced the budget. So I'm not, Barack Obama has a new reality this week, and, he's going to have to respond. I think that's going to be the big question, as we enter 2011. Exactly how is Barack Obama going to respond? We saw what Bill Clinton did in 1995. He saved his presidency. He was able to serve for, a second term. Will Barack Obama be able to make the same kind of transformation? I just don't know.
Well, I guess, Congressman, the question is, though, how will Republicans now in the leadership respond to the president saying, hey, we want to get together with you here after all this time, especially with the federal health care plan, the president all but locking Republicans out?
Yep, no, I think that's exactly right. the president sets the tone for Washington, D.C. Bill Clinton set a very conciliatory tone, reached out and worked with Newt Gingrich and the Republicans, and then, you're right. It takes two to tango. At that point in time, Newt Gingrich said, we're going to work with this guy and we're going to get some things done. You'll remember in 1996, Bob Dole, our presidential candidate in 1996, was furious that we reached an accommodation with Bill Clinton on welfare because he recognized that would be Bill Clinton would use it in the presidential election. And Bill Clinton did. Said, hey, look, I can get things done. I reformed welfare. I did it with the Republicans. Re-elect me. But Newt Gingrich and the Republicans on Capitol Hill said reforming welfare is more important than, doing something for political and partisan reasons. And so hopefully John Boehner and the Republicans will respond in like manner, saying if we do good public policy, it's good for America and it's also good politically, because in 1996, what happened? Bill Clinton got reelected president, but Republicans also maintained their political control because they focused on doing substance and not politics. I think John Boehner, again, will have the maturity to respond in like manner if Barack Obama reaches out in a conciliatory way.
But the question is, though, I mean, how much can Republicans compromise with the president while at the same time maintaining the policies that got them elected this time?
That is another $1 million question, because everybody's going to be watching the folks that they're not going to repeal health care. And there's a lot of people who I think have the expectations that health care will be repealed. It won't be repealed.
Why not?
Only control.
Why not?
Because Republicans only control the House of Representatives. A repeal bill will not make it through the Senate. And if somehow the Democrats fell asleep in the Senate for a day and they actually repealed health care, President Obama would veto it. So Republicans will not be able to put up on the board repeal of health care, mission accomplished, by 2012.
So in that sense, there's got to be compromise.
There's got to be compromise. There always has to be, to get things done. There was in 1995 and 1996. Bill Clinton didn't get everything he wanted. Republicans didn't get everything that they wanted, but they moved the country forward. And how are Republicans going to live up to the expectations of the people that gave them the resounding win on Tuesday night? It's going to be a huge question.
We look forward to talking to you next.
One that's going to be faced in Washington and in Lansing.
We'll look forward to talking to you next Thursday. Congressman Pete Hoekstra from West Michigan in the final weeks of his term in office. It's 18 after the hour. Michael Patrick Shields back in a flash. When will James Bond be back? 007. License to Kill from MI6. Who knows? Maybe never. MGM has filed for bankruptcy. That's the age-old Hollywood studio. Chapter 11. And so, therefore, the James Bond series has been put on hold. They were supposed to make the 23rd James Bond film, suspended indefinitely with all of other MGM's film projects because of financial troubles at the Roaring Lion of MGM. They're going to be restructuring and dealing with the courts and so forth, and so we don't know when Bond will be back. At the end of all the James Bond movies, they usually have a title and a page in the closing credit, James Bond will return. Will he? Don't know. We never let the birthday of a beautiful woman pass without taking note. Loretta Swit is 73 today. Hot Lips from the show MASH, and the former First Lady Laura Bush. Marky Post is 60, and Beth Wall. Is that Betty? Bettie. Betty is 80 today in Holt, Michigan. That's Amanda Wall's grandmother. Now, in other news, well, let me give you the sports, because there are people who are saying, oh boy, enough about the election already. But, some intrigue there. In politics, it's our family business. But the Red Wings were out in Calgary yesterday. They started a 3-game road trip against the Flames, and radio broadcaster Ken Kal was there.
Thanks, Michael Patrick. Justin Abdelkader scored his first goal of the season and it proved to be the game winner as the Red Wings defeated the Flames 2-1 last night in Calgary. It was the second straight win for Detroit. 8 minor penalties were called in the first period. Mark Giordano's power play goal at 15:58 of the first period put the Flames on the board. Detroit roared back, though, in the second to take the lead on Mike Modano's second goal of the season and Abdelkader's first of the campaign. Calgary had just 4 shots on goal in the final period. Jimmy Howard shut the door for his 5th win of the season. Detroit outshot the Flames 33-17 in the contest. The Red Wings now travel to Edmonton for a meeting with the Oilers on Friday night. Final again in Calgary, the Red Wings 2 and the Flames 1. That's the story from the Saddle Dome. Now back to you, Michael Patrick, in the studio.
The Detroit Red Wings will play against the Oilers in Edmonton tomorrow night and then wrap up their road trip in Vancouver against the Canucks on Saturday. Pistons are 0-5 now on the season with a loss to the Hawks in Atlanta last night, 94-85. They're going to try to get in the win column tomorrow night, hosting the Charlotte Bobcats at the Palace here in Michigan. Former Tiger manager Sparky Anderson has been placed in hospice care in his California home. He's got complications from dementia, the winningest Tiger manager of all time. Got the World Series there in 1984 and became the first manager to win the World Series as a manager in both the National League and the American League, because with the Cincinnati Reds, the Big Red Machine. He won it in 1975 and 1976. Sparky Anderson in the Baseball Hall of Fame is 76 years old. And I remember reading a story in Sports Illustrated that he said to all of the players on the Reds at the beginning of the year, "You see these guys right here?" And he pointed to Johnny Bench and to Pete Rose. He said, "These guys are the stars, the Stallions, and the rest of you are all what comes out of the Stallions. So you follow their lead and don't bother me." And that's pretty much how he ran that clubhouse. And we talked to Larry Sorensen a little while ago, and he said that, that Sparky ran the best clubhouse that he'd ever seen. And Larry Sorensen pitched for 7 major league teams and was a broadcaster, too. So he's seen an awful lot of clubhouses. One of my favorite memories of Sparky Anderson, he was in an argument when he was managing the Tigers with one of the umpires, and he really got mad. You know how they get in each other's faces, and they're yelling and stomping and complaining. And Sparky took his hat and threw it up into the air, about 30 feet up in the air. The hat was up there at Tiger Stadium, floating in the air, going up, and the umpire said, "If that hat comes down, you're out of here." And sure enough, the hat came down, and they threw Mr. Manager out of the game, and that was that. I was lucky to get to know Sparky Anderson quite well, because I used to have to wake him up every morning for the radio show I produced, the J.P. McCarthy Show. We would call him at 7:30 in the morning after every game. We had a special arrangement with him, even when he was on the West Coast, and that would be 4:30 in the morning. And he would always answer the phone with that gravelly voice. He just got awakened, but he was always friendly and pleasant about it. And in fact, I have a new book coming out in a couple of weeks called Invite Yourself to the Party. And on the back cover, there's an endorsement from Sparky Anderson for that book. So I really appreciate that and appreciate the time that I got to know Mr. Manager, Sparky Anderson. Last time I saw him was on a flight. Where were we? I was going to Fort Lauderdale from Detroit, and he was on board with some members of his family. Randy Moss has found a new home. The wide receiver who seems to cause a lot of trouble wherever he goes. He is going to the Tennessee Titans, and good luck managing him there. Smiles at the University of Michigan. Apparently, the football coach, Rich Rodriguez, has been absolved of the NCAA's allegations that he failed to promote an atmosphere of compliance. The program will get another year of probation, says a person close to the team. We're going to get that announcement, I guess, later today, the NCAA's decision. And we will talk a little bit later with Andrea Fisher-Newman, who was the top vote getter yesterday in the University of Michigan Board of Regents, see what she knows from the inside. And in Muskegon, Andrew Rutkowski, the Michigan golfer, has made it through the first stage of PGA Tour qualifying school. And one of the ways he did that was working very closely with Brian O'Neill from the Boyne Golf Academy. So congratulations to the teacher and the coach. Keep up the good work, and let's see if we can get Andrew from Muskegon onto the PGA Tour by January, I guess, is when they'll crank it back up. 30 minutes after the hour, Michael Patrick Shields. Doug Pratt is with us now from the Michigan Education Association. The last time we talked, it was election night, and it seems that a lot of the candidates that the Michigan Education Association endorsed ended up on the short end of the stick the other night. What does that mean for education in our state going forward? Doug Pratt will probably tell us about it. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Very good. Usually when people want to get elected, they talk about education, they talk about taxes. Will any of these candidates be able to deliver for education?
You know, we're going to work with everybody who got elected on Tuesday to try to help them make sure their campaign promises come to pass. I mean, they all talk about education on the campaign trail as the key to our economic future. Well, we need them to hold to their promises, to make it a priority, and we're going to build relationships and work with everybody who got elected. About half of MEA's recommended candidates won on Tuesday. So, we've got folks who we've already started to forge a relationship with who are going to be in office. But, education's a bipartisan issue, and we're going to keep working with everybody.
Were you surprised at the margin of victory for Rick Snyder?
Yeah, a little bit, but when you have that many polls that are all telling you pretty much the same thing, you begin to realize that it's probably going to be the way it works. And I do just want to say that Virg Bernero ran a heck of a campaign, and we were happy to support him. But we're also looking forward to working with Rick Snyder. We're looking forward to having the conversations with him that he has already talked about the need for us to have, and really looking at the data, because we believe the data is on our side when we look at a lot of the issues that Mr. Snyder is passionate about. Investing in education is a great thing for our economy. It's something that's going to move us forward, and we believe that when you really look at the numbers and the data, that's going to be something that Mr. Snyder agrees with us on.
You know what's interesting? You hear a lot of people saying we've got to cut government spending, we can't raise taxes. This money, this funding has got to come from somewhere. And I think what happens isn't it that when you talk in a general sense about cutting, everybody likes the idea until it comes to something that affects you, and then, hey, wait a minute, I didn't mean that. You know what I mean? Nobody wants their own services cut or their own the things that are important to them.
Absolutely. I mean, probably the biggest refrain I got talking with my members throughout the election season was people were talking about the out-of-control spending in Lansing, and everybody was looking at me like, okay, so where is this out-of-control spending? Can we have some of it? So it was kind of the running gag. We're going to have to see how this plays out. I mean, you're exactly right. People don't want the services that they have come to depend on cut. And we're going to have to see how that plays out. There are some really tough choices ahead of folks, but the electorate's spoken, and now the leaders we're going to have in Lansing have to make some tough decisions. I don't think it's going to be as easy as some folks would like to believe it is.
Yeah, we're going to get down to the brass tacks and the specifics now, and you keep in touch with us, won't you?
Absolutely, always.
Thank you very much. That's Doug Pratt from the Michigan Education Association at 34 minutes after the hour. Coming up next, Andy Hetzel from Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan. You heard Congressman Pete Hoekstra say a few minutes ago, there is not going to be a repeal of what some people are calling Obamacare, the health care reform. It's simply not going to happen, despite what some of those Republican and especially Tea Party candidates has been telling voters. So we'll talk with him about that, too. Also, as I say, we never let the birthday of a beautiful woman pass without taking note. We had an absence yesterday. Kelly Howard from the Michigan Supreme Court celebrated her birthday yesterday, so we certainly can't miss her on that birthday, too. 35 minutes after the hour. Later, too, George Volman will be with us, the Automotive Insider. Very good news for the automotives, particularly Chrysler, as they released their sales figures yesterday. We'll get that information for you. And the IPO for General Motors coming within a couple of weeks. You're going to have to make up your mind whether you went in on that investment very soon. Back in a flash. Good morning to you, wherever you're listening across the state of Michigan. Very nice to have you with us this morning in Traverse City and Petoskey, Muskegon, Grand Rapids, Saginaw, Mount Pleasant, Lansing, Kalamazoo, and everywhere in between, Manistee, and all those beautiful spots. You're listening in Midland this morning. Nice to have you with us, too. If you're listening in Howell this morning, come on out sometime to the state capitol and visit us here at our Gillespie Group storefront studio. We're right on the Avenue of Michigan, just a couple blocks from the Capitol, and just a couple of blocks from where Rick Snyder's office will be, right across the street from Virg Bernero's office. And if they wanted to have a spitball contest across the Michigan Avenue, they could probably do it from their respective offices. Not that they would do that, of course. Mayor Bernero has pledged his support for Rick Snyder, having lost in the election just the other day. But you can come see us. We have a what we call it a storefront studio, which means you can come and watch the show from the street. We have the televisions in the window. You can watch in the lobby. There's memorabilia and the coffee house next door. I see all sorts of business people in there all morning long enjoying a Java or a chai charger or whatever it is, hot chocolate, hot cider at this time of year. You can be part of the show or just watch and enjoy it. You can find us, too, at YouTube if you're somewhere else in the state and you want to see what this thing looks like, youtube.com/MPS in the AM. And our podcasts are always available if you want to hear an interview over again, like Stephanie Powers, who we talked to earlier this morning. You can hear that at MichiganTalkNetwork.com under MPS in the morning and podcasts. Oh, you probably have Facebook. Everybody does, don't they? You can find us there at Michael Patrick Shields in the morning. And I invite you to ring us at any time. Are you getting all this? At 888-900-9966. Andy Hetzel with us this morning, Vice President of Corporate Communications from Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan. Good morning to you.
It's great to talk to somebody with such wide reach, Michael Patrick. Good morning to you.
I know you were an advocate of joining Twitter. We have done that, too. So we are on Twitter. It's Twitter at, the at MPS in the AM. So from time to time, we'll tweet at you. I wanted to talk with you because we just got off the phone with Congressman Pete Hoekstra, who is leaving office in West Michigan after the better part of 2 decades. His analysis of what happened in the election the other day and what the Republicans are going to do next now that they have so much control was this. He thinks that a lot of the people who voted for Republicans because Republicans promised to go to Washington and try to repeal the Obama health care legislation, the law, I guess, Obamacare is what they're calling it, those people are going to be disappointed because there is no way that the Republicans are going to be able to reverse the health care reform simply because the Democrats still control the Senate. And he says even if a senator or two fell asleep and somehow it got through the Senate, the president would veto any repeal of the health care. So it's going to go forward no matter what, and we ought to probably get used to that.
I think Congressman Hoekstra is a very wise and respected man, and he knows what he's talking about. It will be incredibly difficult, but at Blue Cross, Michael, we're not so much concerned with the politics. We are concerned most of all with implementing the changes that the law requires. That's what we're hard at work doing. We want to make sure that we get all the changes enforced, that we are compliant with the law, and that we're serving our members and customers the best we can through these changing times with information, but also with doing the right thing, and that's what the federal law requires now.
And, one of the, it occurs to me that one of the byproducts of all this discussion about health care is that suddenly, if nothing else, people are much more aware about their health care and about the things that they can do to lower their costs, the things they can do to take more maximum advantage of their health care.
Yeah, we hope so. The debate was watched. I think that generally people became a little confused and a lot frustrated during the course of the political debate just because of the politics.
Yeah.
But there are some good things in the law Blue Cross has supported for a long time, eliminating pre-existing conditions from being considered for coverage. We haven't done that in 70 years here in Michigan, Michael. Helping children get covered by eliminating pre-existing condition waiting periods for their coverage. I mean, these are good changes that Blue Cross has long supported, and as I said, we're implementing the changes that are required of all insurance plans right now. We have a great website out there to help people better understand the changes that impact them at bcbsm.com/healthreform. It really makes the information simple and clear, and depending on where you come from, if you're a consumer or if you're a business owner or if you're a provider of health care, we have information specifically to you there at bcbsm.com/healthreform. We encourage everybody in Michigan to take a look. It's not just for Blue Cross members.
Well, you know what? My one of my doctors said to me yesterday. He said, every once in a while, instead of a steak and red wine, it wouldn't kill you to have some fish and white wine. I thought,
well,
okay,
that's true.
That's a good start.
They say that a glass of red wine a day helps your heart, and until the next study comes along that says it's not good for you, then sort of you can prescribe it for yourself, I guess.
Well, at Blue Cross, I know you have Healthy Blue Outcomes, and you're encouraging people to take better care of their health and rewarding them with savings. And so when we talk about awareness of your own health, you've got to be an active participant too. It wouldn't hurt you or me particularly to pay more attention instead of just walking in with the card and saying, I don't feel good. Use that card to improve the quality of life, and that's what Blue Cross is asking you to do in so many ways, like walkietalk.com, where you can go and come up with a walking program. And in this crisp autumn weather with the falling leaves, it's a nice time to take a walk, and a lot of people will be doing that at the tailgate parties this weekend. Minnesota comes to Michigan State. Take a stroll around campus, listen to the band on Saturday morning. Even if you don't go to the game, it's a blast. It's Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan's Andy Hetzel. You can find him on Facebook, too. 14 before the hour, Michael Patrick Shields back with the Automotive Insider, George Volman, in 4 minutes. Good news for the auto companies. We'll share that with you. George Volman, the AutomotiveInsider.com, says, shut up and drive. That's what he did. Drove right here to our Gillespie Group storefront studio this morning. Good morning to you, sir.
Hey, good morning, MPS. How are you?
How was the traffic on the way from the cool city of Portland?
You know what? Wasn't too bad.
Very, very good. Jeff LaFrance is with us from Firekeepers Casino. We woke him up early. You know, the casino guys, it's tough because they have late nights, but he was nice enough to get up early this morning. Good morning to you, Jeff.
Good morning, MPS. How are you?
Good morning, Jeff.
Yeah, good to hear from you. I just had to share this news story with you, and I know George will get a kick out of this too because you lived in the Detroit area, and you know people travel back and forth frequently to Windsor through the tunnel and the bridge. And the couple of guys went to the casino that's in Windsor there, all right? And Jeff, they made a big score. They won a bunch of money, and they knew when they came back across the border that you can only take so much money without having to declare it. So what they did is they left some of the winnings. They won $40,000 apparently, and they put some of the winnings in the casino banks, you know, so they could go back and use it again. And they didn't want to take it across the border, so they had $20,000, and they split it between each other, as I understand it, so that they would stay under the $10,000 threshold. But for some reason, when they got to customs, they said that they had far less than that. And for whatever reason, I don't know if they look suspicious or what happened, the customs official says, okay, we're going to have a little count here. And they counted the money. All of a sudden, the guys started to get nervous, like, oh, they're going to see we have more than we accounted for. And, of course, they did. They counted up whatever it was here, something like $19,901. So they fibbed. And do you know what the penalty is if you try to avoid customs?
Since I've never done that, no.
It is forfeiture of the item that you're trying to smuggle in.
Oh.
So they lost all of the money. It was all seized by the border guards. So if you're bringing Cuban cigars or whatever it is that you're trying to sneak across, you forfeit it. So these guys lost almost $20,000.
That's incredible. You know, I take a couple things away from that story. First thing, obviously, is to not hide your winnings. You know, you should never try to hide it from customs or IRS or anything. You should declare exactly what's actually happened because somebody's going to find out eventually. The second thing I take from that is at Firekeepers, we make a concerted effort to spend money locally, spend money in the Michigan economy and reinvest back into the area that we live in. And, you know, unfortunately, if these two guys would have played locally, in a Michigan casino, they wouldn't have run into this issue with customs.
Yeah, that's right. You don't need to show your passport to get from I-94 onto to 69 and drive back to Lansing, right?
Right.
Exactly, and they could have had just as much fun over here at Firekeepers at exit 104 on I-94.
Oh, I bet money they're wishing they had.
Hey, that's a good pun, George. So anyway, these guys hit it big and then lost it all, and so I know that there are people. Hey, what happens at Firekeepers if you hit it big like that, and maybe you're a little bit nervous about going to the parking lot and that sort of thing? If somebody comes to you and says, you know, I got a lot of money here, I want to get it out of here, is there some way that you can help them?
Oh, absolutely. We've had some recent jackpots. We had a $370,000 winner not too long ago, and we had a personal security escort out to their car. Now, granted, in that type of case, they don't walk out with a big bag of cash.
Yeah.
They're walking out with a check that's in their name.
All right.
So, but we provide a security escort to make sure that everybody's comfortable in that case.
So you can do that. What if you lose? Can you have somebody sort of pat you on the back as you get in the car and say, don't worry about it?
We like to encourage all of our players and wish them good luck and hope they have a good time and remind them it's for the entertainment. So
Yes.
Absolutely, we'll pat you on the back.
That's what the bar is for, too.
Right, for entertainment.
Bet with your head, not over it. That's what they always say, right?
Absolutely.
No border guards at Firekeepers Casino. Thank you very much for that cautionary tale. And all you have to do is go there to the, it's sort of in between Marshall and Kalamazoo, right there about 45 minutes from Lansing and not much farther from Grand Rapids. You can get there from Mount Pleasant and, of course, Jackson very easily, too. Jeff LaFrance with Firekeepers Casino. The Automotives, George Volman, hit it big. Their sales figures year to year were absolutely fantastic. All three, Chrysler, Ford, and General Motors, and Chrysler had a 37% rise.
Right, you're actually seeing what we call the march up. The economy is now starting to come back. In fact, I think the jobs report showed that 45,000 jobs were added in the private sector. The auto industry is starting to add jobs. You're going to start seeing the sales rate rise, and you're probably going to see the used car values peak and start dropping a little bit, because what happens is used cars go up and then eventually people just trip over and start buying the new, and I think that's what you're starting to see.
We were up to something like 16 million units a year, right? In the United States?
17.1.
17.1. Where will we be next year?
13 to 13.3, I think, is
Wow.
the Ford economist's prediction.
Up from something like 9 at the low?
9.7 at the low.
How about at the dealer level?
Well, I mean, most of that stuff from a Ford perspective is going to go through the dealers. I mean, there's going to be some fleet, but primarily Ford is going directly after the retail market share, and I can attest that we're starting to get more inventory in, and we're starting to feel a little bit more comfortable, whereas at the beginning of the year we were not.
At Volman Ford,
Correct.
you're moving metal.
That's correct.
Huh. Is this a good time of the year for car sales?
It's a good time anytime
Is
to
it now?
buy an automobile.
Yeah?
Yeah, it is, actually, because they've got good incentives.
They do?
Yeah.
A
So
zero-
they got 0% on some cars. They've got some other lease deals. So, they're starting to get the whole array back into the play, which is good.
That's terrific. George Volman, the Automotive Insider, and Volman Ford. We'll see you out there in the cool city of Portland.
Thanks.
Come and kick the tires, or just ask George for advice, too. He doesn't mind. Ring him or find him at theautomotiveinsider.com. Television viewers, it's been fun watching you this morning. Remember, I can see you, too. Not really. Thanks for being with us. Radio, stay right where you are. We'll be back with another hour of your Thursday. It's Michael Patrick Shields.
Someone do me a favor and pour me some Jaeger, and I'll grab my guitar and play.